Ritesh, thank you very much for joining us. You've just flown in. Do you think without technology, a boy from Odisha would reach where you have reached?
No, so first off, I think thank you everyone for having me here, and especially the session had to be moved 30 minutes because I wanted to make sure I voted before I came. So I wanted to start by saying, please vote. It takes a little bit more, but it takes that little effort. But if you do it, you feel good about it. Look, I think technology is a great leveler, and in three ways. Just for quick context, most of you would not have heard about this place. I grew up in a place called Raigada in the South Odisha, Andhra border. Majority of the people there earn less than $100 a year. So from there, to be able to even dream that you could make an impact like this was very little. I actually feel like I had a great life growing up because I knew nothing but about my hometown of Raigada. I thought that's the only city that existed in the world. But then came internet, the dial-up internet, and I could read news. And in news, I could read that there are entrepreneurs who were 18, 25, 30, and they were building big companies. So I looked at them and I said, agar ye kar sakta hai, to main kyun nahi? Right? So I think technology first starts by letting everybody dream. You could be in Raigada or New York or in Auckland, you can dream the same thing. And second is, I think, after that, it's really meritocratic. That is, if you can work hard and take advantage of it, you can do big impact. If you can't use it, it's probably ignorable. And if you use it poorly, it can also hurt you. So I think that's my view. So I think technology is a godsend. And I think, this year I was telling you earlier that I was on the season of Shark Tank, which is a popular television show in India. And it's incredible that you see, I met this company, which comes from a place in Bihar. He used to really be a chaprasi. Chaprasi is like a clerk for people who won't relate. From being a chaprasi, he saw somebody coding. He learned coding himself, now runs a multi-million-dollar company, generates profits, came on Shark Tank and took funding from there.
Did you give him any money?
I of course, invested in him. No questions asked. So I think that's the big transformation. The technology will allow the nobodies to have the opportunity to be the best in the game. The question is, are they willing to work hard for it?
I think, and someone from the rural India definitely have better work ethic in many cases. The next question I wanted to ask you was about CIOs and your company. And very few people know that OYO actually has more revenue from Europe and abroad than they do from India, right? So what is the role of a CIO as far as you're concerned in a company like OYO?
Look, I think, first off, I'm preaching the choir. So here we have so many CIOs, so it's hard for me to share what's the role of a CIO better than what you know already. But I will share from my own humble experience. I think my simple perspective is the CIO role has ceased to be an one more senior leader role. In my view, it is equally or the second most important role after the CEO. So I often say that CIO is the new COO in the modern day enterprise. And it is important that I explain some context why I think so. Today, if you want to get a customer, the first thing customer asks is, how do I integrate with your system? Your finance team asks, which software do I use to build them? There's a customer service software required as to how do I serve the user. We were just talking about cybersecurity. How do we secure the users? So essentially, in every life cycle of an entire enterprise, whether it is a manufacturing setup or service setup, usage of technology has become unparalleled. So to that extent, it will be a huge mistake for founders, CEOs, or boards to not have CIOs in the room when they're making big strategic capital allocation decision or business decisions. Because if you think about it, there were large technology companies before Facebook or Google, which were the core semiconductor companies, some of which may be here. They did not pursue the goals of social media, search, and so on, because a lot of those companies thought that their primary job was manufacturing or the fab management and things like those. But in today's world, you have to be cross experience, and that probably the CIOs slash CTOs have the most opportunity for. So I think personally, CIOs first need to feel confident and feel good enough that they are the CEOs and CEOs of their companies, and hence demand more from their boards and CEOs. And similarly, boards and CEOs need to believe that they need to bring CIOs in the room. Because when things go wrong, the first person they call is a CIO, and some of you may relate with it. If you bring the CIOs in the room when the strategy is being designed, probably you will have much more opportunities to grow than usual. So that's my view of the opportunity of CIO.
Are you looking for some CIOs?
Well, I think this is the most precious talent nowadays in the market, so we are always looking, no questions asked.
So let me talk about now technology, since your business is so rooted in technology. The AI scene, how much is that affecting what you do and how you do it?
Look, I think we all recognize that in our lives, there are 2 or 3 times there has been transformative technology impact. I was a little kid, but a lot of you may remember watching that video of Steve Jobs unveiling the iPhone and App Store being a transformative launch. 20 years back, the App Store did not exist. Right? Today, trillions of dollars are transacted on apps built on the App Store. My entire company, last year we did over 10,000 crores in sales, almost entirely through apps. Right? And I am like a small drop in the ocean. There are so many other bigger companies who are making the same difference. I think AI is probably the next generation of the same impact. Now, in the last 20 years, we all knew about the existence of a mobile app, right? It's not like any one of us did not. The difference between the ones who could create value from it versus the ones that did not are people who themselves got their hands dirty, who tried to experience mobile apps, who tried to think how it could make a difference, failed maybe a few times, and then tried to make the best benefit out of it. In similar way, I think that AI is something that all of us, how many of you have used ChatGPT by now? I'm sure everyone, right? So large part of the room has used it. I have a simple request. I'm sure a lot of you, and I must assure you, Microsoft is a shareholder in our company, but they have not paid me to say this. But they have a product called Copilot, which is slightly more nuanced. I'd encourage, if any one of you are not using it, just use it from your perspective to experience. I used Copilot. I use myself, by the way, every week, a few hours of Copilot. So last week I used Copilot, where OYO wanted to enter into a new segment or an industry. So I basically asked Copilot to make 3 different personas and say, should OYO be in the business of service departments, which is a segment we've been thinking about? Please debate it for me. And 3 of them had different debates. One said, well, have you looked at the extended stay markets in the US? That's a very exciting opportunity. The other said, but if you have to pursue it, you have to have a kitchenette in the room. Do you have enough space for it? The third person says that, well, you may need to consider having a different brand because yours is known more for the hotel room, not the one for the long stays. And 3 of them debated and made probably 200 lines of comments, summarized it in 20 lines, and gave it to me. Right? This is what AI today will do. And I don't think Copilot is the only thing that can do it. I think there are many products that can do it. I'm sure a lot of your companies are doing this. But fundamentally, it's going to transform how all of us work and our clients work every day. And hence, my only request would be that AI's upside and opportunities are endless. I have no question. I'm sure you all know it. You're in this business. My only suggestion is that all of your colleagues in your companies, try and nudge them to themselves use AI experiences. It will sound scary at first. I have been trying to do it with my colleagues. It will sound scary at first, but then people will get addicted to it in a good way, hopefully. So I think AI is going to be very transformative. And it also is sort of a new gold rush, right? Like NVIDIA's earnings is such a popular discussion nowadays. Their profits grew by 630% yesterday, the news that came about. But I don't think NVIDIA is the only company benefiting from it. I saw IBM, they are benefiting dramatically from it. I think, Intel's benefiting dramatically from it. The largest fab companies are getting great benefits. I was looking at, various businesses who are building stacks on top of it. Racks companies, I heard about connectors and various others. They are going to make a huge difference. Power companies. Power companies are getting such massive demand because AI data centers, usage, consumption of power is many times higher than that of a standard data center. So I think AI is going to bring a whole new industry of, I think, many billions of dollars, and all of our companies can jointly benefit from it if we are just keeping our eyes and ears open.
I did share that piece with you. So in Seoul, there's been a comment about the dangers of AI and how people are not looking at it. So when you are adopting a technology into OYO, what are the things that you're looking for? The green flags or the red signals? So, I mean.
Look, I think I will answer this in 3 different ways. The first one is technology, anytime when it comes new, it can be very scary initially, or it can be very, it can feel very new to you. When we started in the first place, Bikramjit, you remember this, in a bunch of cities when we went to, people said, well, other hotels will run out of business. Or various stakeholders felt very disappointed, and people were very unhappy of it multiple times. In the long term, people have seen that on an overall basis, the industry has grown because of the existence of OYO rather than the other way around. And I think that's what will happen with AI as well. And I'll give an example of how we've used technology. So today, you'd be surprised to know that every day we change our prices 8 to 9 million times every single day with no humans. It's done by machines. Basis, supply, demand ratio, specific markets, and things like those. Versus traditionally, you'd imagine to have a revenue manager in every hotel to do it. I have 18,000 hotels because I have small hotels, right? So I can't afford to have so many revenue managers. So machines are doing all those jobs. And I think increasingly we will see that every business will become a technology business that you're already seeing. I think you'd be seeing customers like never before, cement companies, like traditional companies wanting to become technology ready, which is a huge opportunity in my view. Last is, how do we think about bringing in technology usage? I was looking at the sponsors. We are clients of almost all those companies. I think the way to think about it is, first off, the honest reality is, and you all experience it, there's a constant battle between the CIO's teams and the core business users sometimes who are using the experience. Because there are 2 different views sometimes that I get when I am reviewing a business, where the CIO's teams bring a perspective of what's the best technology, how can it help us. But whenever there's a new technology, the core business users are always worried about change. So my recommendation, again, this is a room full of CIOs. If there were business people, I could have been more, it would have helped. I always say that when in doubt, always invest in the future. Right? Because at that moment, it will be painful, but in the long term gives great results. And I remember this very clearly, right? Like back in the day, we'd started our company, our finance department, like we were just 1.5-year-old. And our finance department was run on old technology stacks for accounting. And I was told that, ERPs typically companies get when they have 1,000 crores of sales or higher. But I understood the benefits of it. And from probably a year and a half of our business, I said that we will transition to an ERP, because I was recommended by the CIO, said, yeah, pursue kijiye, it'll give you long-term benefits. That's the reason when we grew from that 50, 60 crores to 5,000 crores in 4 years, I never had to take a 3-4 month break. I just could keep doubling down. And it was not just in accounting ERP, right? It goes for customer service and all the key software stacks that I think about. The second thing that I believe is also another very important perspective is I like to personally speak to the sellers myself, especially for the critical services. So if it is cloud, if it is accounting, if it's customer service, HR automation, clouds. So these are like top 7-8 software that we use. I would personally speak to the people partnering with us, because I've often found that as a business leader, if you're speaking to the companies bringing in the service to you, you find a fascinating way of being able to utilize their products in manners you'd have never thought about. You're not just looking at a single line, right? Like you think about new ideas about how they can help you. So that's the second thing I can recommend. And the last one is that, I think, of course, we are all, as a company, we have become far more bottom line focused in the last 3-4 years. So we are also at the balanced, invest in the future, but also are looking to make sure that in the long term, it is economical in terms of total cost of ownership. We don't look at immediate cost, we look at 5-year total cost of ownership of a certain software. That's how we think about it.
And what about AI and the job of a CIO? Is there a threat over there?
No, I think...
Since you have 3 AIs discussing the best thing already, I'm just asking.
No, I think that AI is going to make the job of a CIO more relevant than ever before. Because everybody in the company is going to come and ask the CIO that how's my job going to get replaced and can you help me get ahead of time? So I think, look, I think my view is that when we think about our education, we train engineers, but within engineering, there is not a specific branch which talks about the complexities of a CIO's job. Like a CIO's job is they do everything from sourcing to software building to software acquisition to licensing to negotiations to implementation within the company to cybersecurity. It's a pretty wide job if you have to think about it. I feel like if in the long term you want to make sure that, I think the number one problem for CIOs is how do they recruit great teams under themselves? So I feel among universities being able to train new graduates to not just learn about software engineering and hardware engineering, but also have a judgment, which is a critical part of a CIO's job, I think will make a huge difference. And because fundamentally judgment is innately human, I think that a CIO's job is going to be more relevant, but also more risky because you're going to be making big decisions, which can either create the company's long-term success or could also sometimes those decisions hurt the company. So I think it's going to be a very critical role, and hence we should all, pull up our socks.
I think I'm going to now open up to the floor. Is there any questions for Ritesh? The mic, please introduce yourself and ask your question. I think we can do 3 or 4 definite questions, please.
Hi. I'm a big fan of yours from Shark Tank 3. I mean, I couldn't see a more humble person there who actually invested in so many businesses where other people were not interested. So thank you for that, and thank you for promoting so many people. So how to envision a 3-year plan and a long-term plan for any business? Fundamentals of scaling up, please. I mean, because you've grown in a... You can't hear me?
Can you take it closer?
Yeah.
Actually, I could hear all the good things you told about me. And then the question I missed. But sorry, please go ahead to the question.
How to envision a 3-year plan and a long-term plan for any business, and what are the fundamentals of scaling up because you've scaled up in a really short term of time?
Yeah, look, I think a 3 to 5 year plan, in my view, is a balance between entrepreneurs' optimism and CFO's pragmatism. That's what I have learned so far. That is, I am an optimist, so I think that I can make a huge difference. Then the CFO reminds me the earning per share he expects, and then I sort of moderate it to a reasonable level. But I think on a more serious note, I think that in today's world, the power of technology and the new world that exists ahead of us allows us to think in a non-linear fashion. And my job is to aspire for that, but at the same time remember that we should not get ahead of ourselves. So I typically call ourselves, after one time I think we grew quicker than we should have in our history, that we are patiently restless, that we are restless to grow. But if we haven't figured out anything, we are okay to learn and be patient about it. So that's sort of how we envisage a balance in our 3 to 5 year plan. And second is, how do we scale it rapidly? I think a lot of things are very well understood. The process and technology, please invest, at least I have experienced that, invest it at least 12 to 24 months ahead of time. If you try to invest it in the last minute, you may get initial revenue jump, but either your profit will break or customer satisfaction will break. either of which are not sustainable. So my sense is forward investments is the single biggest mantra of sustainable expansion is my experience.
Hi, good afternoon, Ritesh. I'm Shashwat. I'm the CIO at Boat. Work with Samir and Aman. Huge fan of yours on Shark Tank. Just second the lady here. Couple of things which you brought to Shark Tank, which was not there in the first 2 seasons. Nivesh and Pratishat. Really love it. The way you say it. So you said, Ritesh, that you like to talk to the sellers themselves to understand what the offerings are, what your vision is, and where do the two get together. And you are a new dad now. You've got a 7-month-old, 6-month-old, I think. How do you manage this? How do you manage the work-life balance? This is a common challenge for quite a lot of us. And what keeps you restless at night apart from the baby, I'm sure?
Yeah, look, I think the diaper changing, I have becoming a better expert, given like you said, I have a 6-month-old. Look, I think 2 perspectives. Pehla, I think the point on Shark Tank, I think my perspective is that when I first went to the tank this year, I think I was told by people who were at the set saying there is nothing sharky about you. You don't, and my perspective was that, look, that is who I am. And I think they respected it. I respect them for that. And they said, well, if that is who you are, then that's what it is. And I think I'm so thankful for the love I've gotten after the tank, because initially I thought that people will look at it and be not very enthused. How do I manage work and life? I think my perspective is that there is no singular answer to it. I enjoy my work a lot, but at the same time, I have my interests. I love reading books. I watch documentaries. I grew up close to the coast in Odisha, so I try to go out to the water anytime I get an opportunity. My perspective is, to the extent you have an understanding expectation setting culture where you can set expectations with your colleagues and colleagues can set expectations with you. And similarly, you can set expectations with your husband or wife and backwards. I think the ability to create success is disproportionate. The biggest issue is expectation mismatch, is what my experience is in work-life balance.
Okay, the last question. I think that gentleman was, and then
Anurag.
I'll come back.
I really impressed with your humbleness and refined thoughts. On the Shark Tank last year, ETCIO brought Ashneer here, and today we have you, a totally opposite magnet sides. So very interesting to have one aggression and very simple person here on the sets. My question is just, it will be interesting to know the naming convention of OYO, the company name, how you thought of it. OYO.
How did I name OYO? So first off, look, I think my view is that if you see the quintessential Indian management people, they are typically like me. They are shant swabhav ke, focused on their work. They are not interested in too many parallel things. And that's the reason you see that the most CEOs of large tech companies in the US are also Indians now, nowadays in other countries also. So I think, aggression should be in your execution. Baki mein to shanti
Totally
theek hai.
agree.
I think to your question on how did I name OYO, I think it's very simple. My perspective was that it should be a name that should be truly national. I had a dream that someday it will be a national brand. I never thought it would be a global brand. So OYO mein, because it doesn't have a North Indian tinge to it, or a South Indian or an East Indian or West. It's just a different word. So that's how it started. But the short answer is I wanted people to be independent, because I had only one holiday in my entire life before starting OYO, when my parents took me to Allahabad for Kumbh Mela. And I did not have a hotel. I stayed at Chacha ke bhai ke bhatije ka bete ke ghar mein. And it wasn't a great experience. So I thought, I wish I and others can be independent. So OYO stood for on your own.
Okay, this is the last
Thank
question.
Ritesh. Hi Ritesh, good afternoon. So great thoughts and I think great insights and wisdom. I think great to learn a lot of these things from you. I wanted to ask you a question. I know I've been following the journey over the last many years. There was a point in time when I remember there was a news article when they were saying that you have a security threat from a lot of people, a lot of the hotel operators and everything. So in that challenging environment, how did you sustain? How did you keep going? Because someday your family could say कि भैया छोड़ दो काम, अगर जान पे बनाइए तो क्या करेंगे पैसे का, right? So, but you kept going. So, how did you really kept yourself going in that environment?
Look, I think first off, thank you for the question. I think in my experience, first off, you mentioned about wisdom. I can tell you that it is nothing about wisdom that has been earned. It is purely mistakes that have translated to wisdom. So if you make mistake and you live to learn, you can share it as wisdom. But if you go down, then you can't share anymore. So I think I'm lucky that I've lived to tell the stories. I think the last point to your question on saying, look, I generally, if you want to be an entrepreneur or a professional in India, frankly, you have to be very purpose driven. You can't be driven by wealth or salary only, right? Like, because agar aapke purpose nahi hai, there are many reasons people should not be in the jobs that they are in, including my job and many of your jobs. Kitta problem hai, right? Like, things can go wrong, all issues. But if we truly believe in the purpose, there are few reasons to do it, but those reasons have to be so purposeful, so valuable that it keeps you going. So for me, I remember when I started, I stayed in 100 different guest houses and meeting those property owners, staying there, and I felt this is a real problem. I want to fix it. I don't want people to be staying like this. I want it to upgrade. That purpose is so close to my heart कि मतलब ये तो करके ही छोड़ेंगे. That whenever these issues happened, I saw them as more bumps in the journey rather than an eventual outcome. It also helped that I did not have a family then. I was just a 20-year-old with dreams in my eyes, and everybody believed that I would fail anyway. So there was no burden of expectation. But now there is also burden of expectation. There's a family, so it's harder, I think, to do my job today than it was maybe many years back.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Ritesh,
you so
and
much.
thank you for a vastly varied set of questions.
Yes, there's a very
And
personal
I think with the this kind of entrepreneurial setup, you may find some of these people in the next season or the season after that in Shark Tank. Please remember them.
And please take my deals. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. Can we have a loudest round of applause once again for Ritesh Agarwal?